From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy watch science fiction movies and tell you what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya. Tonight we're talking about the science fiction film I Am Mother. It's a 2019 film. It's available currently on Netflix, so consider this your spoiler warning.
Yes, if you haven't seen this film yet, go back, watch it, and then rejoin us to listen to how wonderful it really is.
Because it is. It's a fantastic one, made by a great Perth director, Grant Sputore.
And we actually know how to say his name.
We do, because we heard him say it.
Yeah,
I was very excited about this because, as we mentioned last episode, we ventured out of our sound studio to actually watch this film. It wasn't just watched on Netflix or streaming services. We got ourselves out of the cupboard, so to speak. And we got to see the film on the big screen with the big speakers, and Grant was also there afterwards to do a bit of a Q&A, which was a marvellous experience, wasn't it?
Oh, it was excellent to be able to hear direct input from the director, hearing what his genuine intentions were and some of the process of how it was built, the size of the stages that were used, where it was filmed, what was practical effect, what was CGI and so on. It's great.
There were so many good insights, wasn't it? I mean, quite often, as we always sort of talk about in this show, this is what we feel they're probably going for, and this was the effect on us as the audience. But we're often sort of really left wondering what was the director's intention on that, or what was their outcome, from doing a scene a particular way, or maybe why did they do that and why did they do that, and decisions. And of course we can only kind of talk about it as an audience, whereas fantastic to get Grant's input straight after the movie, giving us a lot of that insight. So yeah, it was a really good experience, and it's something that I think we need to do again. To get out and about. I'd
also say that if you do get the opportunity to attend an event like that, it's well worth the effort.
Yeah, yep, definitely.
And there will be more opportunities for that for us. There's that cinema we went to, I think weekly or monthly, has similar sorts of things. They're not necessarily science fiction.
No.
But there will come more science fiction, I don't doubt.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, and well worth doing.
So, yes.
So what was your number one takeaway, Surrey, from I Am Mother?
Number one takeaway on this one was that practical effects are not gone, and they're very effective. The other one, of course, is that children everywhere will put stickers on everything.
Yeah, and we got a free sheet of stickers, didn't we, afterwards, which was awesome. I sort of lost them, and then I found them the other day in my jacket.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the kids to start putting them on things.
Yeah. You don't have a mother robot lying around somewhere, or a little robot you're tinkering with in the cupboard somewhere?
I had to deactivate her. She was getting a little bit too much.
Yeah.
She wanted to destroy all of humanity to save it.
It's always a nice touch. I'm just trying to think, is it Demolition Man or something? But that idea of a futuristic film, and yet, children still put stickers on a robot, and I'm trying to think, I think it's Demolition Man, where there's an old Beetle or something, and it was the new Beetle at the time that Demolition Man was made in 1997 roughly, and then when we're in the future in Demolition Man, that same Beetle comes by and it's all beat up and there's stickers on it. I might be getting my reference point totally wrong with Demolition Man.
It sounds about right.
Yeah, just as a bit of an in-joke, that because in the 90s you had the old Beatles from the 70s, and, they were hippie and they had the stickers and stuff. So, yeah, I liked that connotation in this film, that a child would put stickers on its mother's robot.
Yes.
Or the robot known as mother.
Mother's body.
Yeah. So it's a good thinking through. Nice attention to detail.
And, okay, so how about you? Is this a hope warning or experiment?
Yeah, a bit of a debate for me on this one, because I can see totally, my first thought was experiment, because overall, the film is debating the idea, could humanity become better? Like, can you make humanity better, I feel. And so the concept in the film is AI, robotic intelligence, has decided to start fresh with a new human race. That was kind of my outtake of the theme of the film. And so Mother, the artificial intelligence, has got this lab and is gives birth to a baby who she's going to raise as the new breed of human, and then have more children, and that mother would carry on a new version of humanity. So on one side, you could really say, well, that's an experiment. But then on the other, when we do get to the crux or the climax of the film, Mother does allow the human mother to take the baby, and sort of surrenders to that concept that, oh, I have done a good job and now you should take over and raise humanity, I suppose. So my take from that, then that could be hope, because it's like, well, if we come back, humans are annihilated. But in that one act, that the young girl being trained as the new mother convinces the AI that, no, I am a better human, and again, it goes back to that big picture, I think, of, quite often people can argue, well, humans are the reason why the environment is the way it is now. We don't treat each other very nice a lot of the time, but stories like this kind of come back to that crux of, well, maybe we are deep down still okay. Humanity's okay.
Yeah, well, we can change and grow and learn.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I'm a bit torn between those two. I don't know if I can put it into one of those.
Well, just to throw a spanner in the works.
You're going to say the other one.
I'm looking at
okay, well, there we go.
Because this is you say there's sort of the hope, because Mother has allowed, backed off and surrendered this child. But in reality, Mother's programming is still in place.
Yep.
And Mother seems to states humanity was her number one priority. And it was interesting that it was not any particular people, not individuals, but rather humanity as a whole. And that's what she was trying to deal with, which leaves you with that question of at what time do I fail the test and it gets restarted? I mean, she had in that little bunker 63,000 embryos.
Yeah.
And they're only up to embryo 4 or something by the end of the movie, which leads you to think, well, she could easily just come back and kill those two off and get embryo 5 out, start over.
Yeah. And look, maybe she would, you know what I mean? Maybe her surrendering the way she does surrender to in the back of her AI intelligence, she's thinking, well, the probability that you will be successful is 40%, but let's give it a go.
Yes,
I've got time. I've got time. AI's got the time, doesn't it? So we'll give you a couple of generations, and then we'll come back and see how well you've done.
Indeed, yeah. So you could say there's a bit of warning there, but I do think it is more on the hope experiment side of things. I think the intention there, and Grant didn't really go into that sort of darker side at the end, but rather I think the intention was that sort of experiment hope of what about a robot supposed to look after humans, and do you get mother-daughter tension and relationship?
Yeah.
On the other hand, and also hope in that we don't really know. I don't think it says what year it's set in. It's kind of not too distant future. I think is the idea. Like, there's obviously some science fiction technology there, like some of those weapons and things that robots had, and the computing power and so forth, but not. Yeah, it's not set 1,000 years in the future. It's set maybe 50 years, 100 years in the future. And you could well imagine that, as far as we know, there was some horrendous human-made disaster, and Mother just kind of followed on and mopped up at the end.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. And I think that gives it depth as well. It's not completely clear-cut, I suppose, whether it is a hope or an experiment. But I think those two categories play out in the movie's theme. So what have you been up to since last episode? Anything yourself in the creative fields?
Creative fields? Well, I'm busily beavering away on book 3. I'm recording the audio book. So there's an audio drama that turned into a novel, has now turned into an audio book. And in time, it's going to become...
What came first, the chicken or the egg?
It's going to become a series of photographs and short films to accompany the text and audio.
Very cool.
So that'll be nice. But I've got listed up now on Netflix a new show called Other Life, which is a science fiction series about some alien spacecraft or probe or something lands on Earth. And then so people just sort of find out where it's come from, and then launch a mission to head back that way.
Yeah.
So I haven't actually started watching that yet, but it's on my list waiting to go. So I'm looking forward to that. I am hopeful that it will be good.
Well,
I mean, it'll be good, but I'm hopeful that it will be like meaningfully good.
Yes, yeah.
As opposed to merely being entertainingly good.
Yeah.
Which is important.
Yeah, excellent.
But other than that, I've been looking into the Mandurah Pop Culture Convention, RACon.
Yep.
So that's coming up in April of next year, 2020. And I've noticed that they don't have their panels or activities or any of that lined up yet. So I'm reaching out to them shortly to find out how I can get Space Brains involved in that, because it's about, they want science fiction content, and I'm sure we can do something.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that would be an excursion.
If we could open the masses to the idea of enjoying science fiction.
Yeah, there we go. Excellent. And I mean, surely we could convince them with our 10 listeners out there that, we have an audience that's willing to listen.
Yeah, so both of you who are listening just now...
You put some pressure on the...
apply pressure.
What's the convention called?
RACon. Not to be confused, there's another RACon in America, which is... Gosh, I can't remember what state that's in. But it's not Mandurah.
No, it's not Mandurah.
So it's RACon as in Mandurah.
We're in Australia here.
Mandurah.
Definitely.
Yes. So last year they had RACon here. And
they did, yeah.
Stephanie Bendrickson.
Yeah.
Good game and plays on Twitch. Has a few other bits and pieces going on.
Well, I mean, either way, maybe it is something that Space Brain should go and visit. Should be an excursion that maybe we should go check it out. Yeah.
I'm going to see what I can wrangle.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's going to be one of those chicken egg things where I go to them and say, hey, I want to get in. They say, yes, you got to have some sort of draw power. I say, well, what if I get a couple of these? There's a couple of nice science fiction authors in Perth here, some science fiction directors and writers, and then I'll contact them and say, hey, I've got a panel on the Mandurah convention. Would you like to tentatively sign up?
Twist the arm a little bit.
And then I go back to RACon and say, hey, I've got these guys signed up. They're keen to come along.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. It's a good old, what's that? Oh, I'm sleeping over at my friend's house tonight. And then their friend tells their parents they're sleeping at the other one. And then you both nick off to the cinemas.
That's right.
Get that late night movie marathon going on that you're not allowed to go to.
That's it.
Which you then have to break into because it's R-rated.
Yeah.
I never successfully did that.
No, I did this is totally non-related, but me and two mates wagged primary school one day, year 7. And I mean, that was kind of the story. Like we all had the story that we'd go to each other's houses kind of idea as a way of kind of fueling people.
Parents never figure that out. No.
But actually our parents dropped us off and I caught the bus to school. And so when we got to school, we then just nicked off to the park and then hid in the bushes kind of idea. And we'd actually, apparently, the story goes with the people that didn't wag school, because there's a couple other guys said they'd wag and they didn't, they chickened out. But the story went that one of us, their sister, came into class looking, to pass on a message. And of course, they were like, well, he's not here today. He's sick. He's obviously sick. And she's like, well, he's not sick. So she gave away the whole kind, and then they were like, they've escaped. Send in the drones. Send in mother.
Send the drones in. Oh my God.
To hunt us down. We had a great day. We went through the parks, went through the bush, went to the deli, got lollies, went to my place for a little while, fed up, and then went back to school to get on the bus thinking that, hey, we've gotten away with murder, but we hadn't.
Really?
It was all already out in the open.
That right there is, I'm sure there's several stories on that. And Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Yeah, that's why I always liked Ferris Bueller.
Done.
Yep.
Okay, so iammother. Let's talk about what that, bit of a rundown on the story there. So iammother, it opens with day 0.
It does, yep.
I believe it says,
Days since extinction.
Dazing extinction
event, I think.
Yeah, extinction event. So, and this is the thing, it doesn't tell us, as I said, we don't know
what that means.
Yeah, we know that Mother's involved later on, but the extinction event could have been anything.
It could have been anything, yeah.
And Mother activates. She's a robot plugged into this sort of charging harness.
Yep.
And other computer readout displays and so forth. She gets up and wanders over, and the little readout on the screen says, it tells us that we're in a human life
lab
recovery
lab
or something.
Like that.
With 63,000 human embryos. Odd.
Yeah, and it does also say number of humans in population, and it's zero. Yeah.
And she goes over and she pulls out an embryo, and we go through this whole process where a little baby is born, and we see it's sort of a montage, really.
It is a montage,
of a growing child, and till finally it clocks over and goes, days since extinction event, 13,000 something or other, and human population 1. And that sort of sets this scene of the start of the film, where we see some of the daily life, where mother and daughter do classes and tests, and she does a dancing, and they have a little play and that sort of thing, which
it's a nice little sequence, like a mother and a child.
You really do get that feeling that they're kind of living a nice life together.
Yeah,
and there's we get the real sort of changing event happens when there's is it a little alarm or a short circuit or something wakes daughter up.
Yeah.
And she notices that the computers and everything that are plugged into mother are switched off.
Yep.
Which worries her, of course. Her mum is not looking healthy.
Yeah.
So she goes and obviously quite adept at debugging and tracing issues in the system, having been raised there. And we saw scenes of her fixing bits and pieces. She traces this back down and finds a cable which has been nibbled on. And she sits there and she repairs it and plugs it up, and she looks around and sees something under the casements that house all the wiring. So she sets up a little jar with some food in it and waits patiently until a mouse comes out and jumps in, and she picks it up. And she's really amazed because she's been told that it's just impossible for life to live outside of her bunker, which is why she's not allowed to even look out there.
And that we have that sort of great scene with that where she tells mother about the mouse, and mother kind of very instinctively takes it and storming off, and she's saying to her, I thought you said nothing survives outside, and mother's saying nothing can survive outside. Oh, but where did this thing come from? Where did this creature come from? Is it outside or was it always inside? And why haven't we seen it before? And so it's a good debate of maybe outside, which quite often happens in these bunker movies, doesn't it? It's like, well, a bit of time goes by, maybe it would be safe outside, you know. Well, that TV show, The 100, you know, they're told that Earth is not habitable for humans. And so when they land in that TV show, it's like, oh, we're all going to die, you know, and they get out there and they realise, no, it's actually safe for humans now. So there's that great sort of like, she's debating it, and then mother's taking this mouse away, and mother's saying, no, it wouldn't be safe for you, you know, you might die, you might get infected. Again, not really telling us what's happened outside, you know, like, has it been a nuclear explosion, or is it an infection?
Yeah, it's,
you know, like, again, it's
too toxic or something.
Yeah, it's too toxic, you know, for humans. And then she goes and she incinerates the mouse.
Yeah,
you know,
bottle and all.
Bottle and all, everything's gone, and the daughter's kind of saying, "Don't do that, don't do that." You know, this is an interesting creature, which you'd imagine would be correct for a little girl that's been stuck in the bunker.
She's only got origami animals, and she's got this little origami dog and little origami horse and squirrel, and no unicorns there, just in case you're curious.
Wondering. So then, what happens next?
Oh yeah, so she's suspicious now about this mouse is not being there, and what does happen exactly next? Because I want to make sure I don't jump forward too far. So
then it's her birthday.
Oh, that's her birthday.
And we have a nice mother-daughter. Because she's kind of, it is for a teenage daughter, I think, and mother scene, because she's kind of like, she's a bit pissed off about the mouse. But then, you know, and it's like you and I had a good laugh about it afterwards. Like, she doesn't eat her dinner, and mother's like, would you like me to reheat it? And it's just one of these nuclear meal dinners, you know, that you'd probably imagine there's 800,000 of them in storage or something.
She's eating meal variant 16 of
that's right.
32.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, would you like me just to reheat it, And it's a very, I mean, you and I have children, and it's a very much that kind of like a kid playing with their food. And then she's like, well, it's your birthday. Would you like your birthday cake? No, she's grumpy about that. And then she's like, oh, what about your present? And that kind of does lighten her up. And she gives her this present, and it's pajamas number...
Yeah, female.
Female size, medium or whatever, and or
she had
age.
to incinerate the pajamas with the mouse.
She did.
Incinerated everything.
We jumped over that plot point. So, but it was, and she's of course sort of disappointed because it's a pair of pajamas, And she wants an iPad.
And they're not personalised.
No,
it's just pajamas, medium, female.
Yeah, female, yeah.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, there'd be some big storehouse out there with just boxes and boxes of pajamas.
That's right.
They'd all be standard issue, almost medical grade sort of things.
Yeah. And I suppose that's something like, it's not a plot point, but this film, we have this pretty grand set, don't we? Like this bunker does feel big, it feels both futuristic, just slightly in the future, like you're saying, like it doesn't feel that far in the future. It feels very realistic, but it's a futuristic kind of sciencey, medical lab. We have a scene, I think, that follows then in the classroom because she's going to be tested, and the classroom again, it's quite a large classroom, but she's the only student. And but yeah, this bunker that they're in is very big. You get that impression, don't you? There's long corridors. There's big rooms.
And it was the largest indoor soundstage setup in Australia.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, which we got told from
three or so big sound stages.
Yeah. I think they mentioned something like 1,100 square meters, which is really big.
That's a quarter acre for the people in quarter acre land.
Just for the set,
Yeah.
So it is an impressive set. Although we are in this underground bunker, we do change through these scenes. And
so it is that night, though, then, that when mother goes to sleep, little rebellious teenage daughter says, okay, I'm dissatisfied with the arrangements of burning mice. So she gets up and she puts on like a protective clothing, a mask and all the rest of it, and she goes out to the hatches, the airlock.
Yeah, to get out of the bunker.
Yeah, because she goes and she stops and she looks at the where the mouse had nibbled and sort of obviously thinks about it a moment, and she goes out and starts cycling the airlock. And as she hasn't opened out the outer one yet, and she's standing there, and she can hear banging and crashing, and someone starts calling, a woman's voice is calling from outside, let me in, I need help, I've been hurt, please let me in. And so she suddenly abandons her plans to go out and instead goes back in and closes her side of the door and then opens the outside one, lets Hilary Swank in, just called the Stranger. No one has any names in this.
No. She's actually just called Woman.
Yeah, Woman. Grant referred to her as Stranger.
Yep.
And she comes in and closes the door, and now this is the real turning point of the whole film, because now we've got proof that there is other humans outside, and mother, of course, hears the alarm that goes off and comes roaring into life, sprinting down the corridors.
Yeah.
There's heavy thump of her feet down the corridors as she comes running to see what's going on. She doesn't burn the stranger.
I think she wanted to.
Yeah,
as we find out as the film goes on, but she doesn't, because the daughter debates this idea of, well, we should help her. We should say, she needs help. She needs medical help, But we are jumping the gun because so she does let the stranger or the woman in, but then she tells her to stay, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, she
hides her, and so when mother rocks up, she's like. She implies to mother that she wanted to go out of the vents, but she didn't make it out there. She didn't have the balls to open the final
ovaries.
gate. Yeah. And so she hides her and she goes back, and mother then insists that she should do her exam.
Yes, do your exam now.
Do your exam now. Now is your time to do your exam. And the exam's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've seen the precursor to the exam. Here I'm thinking when she's talking about an exam like, maths and English, but it's more of a psychological exam.
It is. It's
the ethical questions, and it's what would you do in this scenario?
Yeah, mood state and
how do you,
thoughts.
Do you always feel depressed? And I think.
Do you have thoughts that you consider would be bad?
Yeah. And we do see daughter answering a couple of these questions, and it's showing a lot about her personality in that sort of practice run through. So mother insists that she should do the exam. And so she sets her up to do the exam.
Yeah.
You stay here, it's going to take an hour or whatever, and then mother disappears, doesn't she? With that, she doesn't do the exam. She disobeys her and she runs back to Hilary Swank and the woman, and she's no longer where she was. She's hiding. And mother goes and incinerates something, doesn't she? What was she?
Oh, the protective clothing.
That's right, yeah. That was gone out in the external situation.
Because at this stage, the stranger hasn't seen Mother.
No.
She's heard her thumping about the place, but not seen that she's a robot.
And then so where she was hiding, the stranger sees Mother, and we get this scene where she's like freaking out, isn't she? And she kind of goes deeper, and she wants her gun back and all that sort of situation. So daughter gets to stranger or other woman or whatever, and she's freaking out, saying, you know what these things are, you don't understand what they've done outside, they're not who you think they are, and all that sort of situation, isn't it? And she wants her gun back.
And she gets her gun back.
And with this, she kind of uses daughter as a bit of a hostage.
Human shield.
And of course, as a human shield. So mother comes storming in, and daughter's still pleading with mother in this scene that stop it, don't, it's okay, we need to help her, she needs medical help. But because she's using her hostage, mother kind of turns into RoboCop.
Mother.
And Terminator, she turns into mother. The motherly instincts kick in. And, Hilary Swank fires bullets at her and everything, but she's too strong for her and overtakes her.
Yeah, pulls the gun off her, overpowers her. Does she inject her with something then, or just drags her off? Because she's not in good condition.
She's not in a good state, and we learn pretty quickly she's been shot, and she's getting sicker by the minute. But daughter convinces mother that she needs medical help, and mother agrees. So she offers her the penicillin, and she's going to inject her.
A great big horse syringe full of it.
It was a very huge syringe, wasn't it? And of course, she doesn't want to have a bar of it because she's like, these things are killers. And then she goes, well, fair enough, you do it to yourself,
Yeah.
And so we're in this sort of like little hospital room, and she leaves. And of course, like whatever day goes by, the next day, and she's getting sicker by the minute.
Yeah, you got a bit of septicemia going on.
Yeah, and mother warns her about that, and daughter says we should help her. Mother's willing to, I'll operate on you, but again, Hilary Swank doesn't want a bar of that. And daughter says, well, I will do it.
Yeah.
And she's open to that. And again, we have the motherly figure of the robot kind of being concerned when she does the surgery and giving her advice. And yeah, I kind of liked that scene. It was a bit sort of, even though mother was not animated on the face in terms of like a human face at all,
no.
It's not a robot like that. And Grant did talk about that afterwards. There was a real genuine concern, like I felt it. And maybe I'm painting the picture, but it felt like mother was concerned about her daughter operating.
Well, I think we can thank Rose Byrne for her voice.
I think we can,
one.
That was a big part of it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So she does operate on her, and, she kind of comes back to herself the next day in the hospital bed. And when she's been passed out, daughter has been flicking through this book she has. And it's got pictures, illustrations of people.
At first I saw it and it was just like a novel. And I was thinking, she's going to be introduced to art, text. But in fact, inside is sketches of people's faces, which intrigues daughter because she goes, well, she must have seen these people.
Yeah. Is there other people out there?
There's a whole bunch of other people out there.
Which she says there is. She comes from a place called the Mines, and there's a community of humans in this place called the Mines. She tells her as well that the robots hunt them, and there's a particular kind of young boy illustration.
Yeah, Simon, was that his name?
I think so. That might be it. And she's so daughter's interested in this. She's a teenage girl. Here's a sketch of a young man, and so she's particularly interested in that.
She's only sort of seen, she seems to watch Johnny Carson.
Yeah,
show,
she watches old TV shows.
Yeah.
And anyway, so she's interested in that. And so she tells her about the mine, she tells her about the people, but she also gives this horror story of, going out trying to collect food for people and a robot like mother hunting them down and, killing them, kind of basically, killing the the other man.
The guy, what was his name?
Whatever his name was.
Tobias or Thomas.
Yeah, something like that. Like he kind of, surrendered himself and they killed him. She tells us that they killed babies and they hunted people and all that sort of stuff. So we're getting a real sudden injection of like mother could be really evil.
And I got a real also feeling there of this, I suppose, mirroring of people's xenophobia in general. I mean, when you have these wars or a racial or a national enemy, you end up with these same stories of baby killing and experimentation. And in the case of the Nazis, it turned out to be true, but in most cases, it's usually this sort of
it's a bit exaggerated,
fear working on itself to sort of build the enemy up to be something more so than it is.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking about it. I'm wondering if there was sort of a part of that going on, because there's a fair bit of that sort of xenophobia going on in this world where various nations and peoples and so forth are sort of getting painted with one big brush.
Yeah.
Despite there being subtleties involved, and this robot mother being the sort of proxy for this other different culture, something you don't understand, but they're fearful and they will stop at nothing to kill you.
Yeah.
Which invariably you have to wonder whether how true that is or not.
Yeah,
it turns out mother was trying to kill people, but
but then see, there's a good twist on the fact that the way mother's face is and the costume, because it is very sort of unemotional, like a human, suddenly then you are thinking, if mother is evil, like Hilary Swank's character is suggesting, then what's going on behind the thoughts? Because we don't have privy to that, we're getting this real gentle motherly creature through the robot. But we
did see a very quick destruction of the mouse, for example.
We did, but you could also see that, we don't want to infect the humans, and that you could argue pretty quickly, but all of a sudden then the face, to me, watching it takes on a bit more of you're like, oh, you don't know what's going on behind there. I mean, like Alien, being there on one side of the screen and Sigourney Weaver, Ripley being on the other, but the alien's just there, right?
Yeah.
Why is it not moving? You don't know what it's thinking, do you? You don't
know how much of mother is purely programming, or how much of it is some sort of actual, genuine conscious sentience.
That's right, because maybe this particular mother is just programmed to raise children, and so it's not militarized.
And that's what she says. She says, my primary concern is with the safety and well-being of humanity.
So it's a real nice midpoint in this film, because you've got for daughter especially, who's been raised by mother. And we as the audience had that as a montage at the start of the film. And we've had these nice moments like the birthday, the mother trying to make her daughter happy, and then at the same time trying to protect her. So you've seen a lot of positivity about mother as a robot, humanizing her. And then all of a sudden you have this other character we know nothing about, but then she is human and she's telling us these negative stories. And she's got some proof, like in her little illustration, that there's these other humans out there in hiding, and all the stories you've been told that outside is not livable is bullshit. So it puts a question mark over it.
To add on to that, then, is it goes to the stranger says, "Well, we should leave here. You can't stay here. It's too dangerous. This bullet, I was shot by it." And mother tells daughter when she brings up this concern, says, well, there was the same caliber as the gun that she was shooting with me, and the androids don't use those.
Yeah.
She shot herself. Or it was implied maybe another human shot her.
That's right.
Squabbling.
Yeah. So it puts doubt in the stranger's story, doesn't it?
Yeah, but rebellious teen, she gets out, and because mother's hand got damaged during the gunfight, she gets the spare hand, and basically, much like in Tau, she uses the fingerprint sensor.
Yep.
Or the effectiveness. It's sort of like a little USB key in mother's finger, which unlocks things. These certain drawers where stuff gets put. And she unlocks it and pulls out the bullet and compares the bullets. They don't match. The bullet that was pulled out of the stranger was considerably smaller.
Yes.
Than the stranger's big bullet.
We get a beautiful shot there, don't we, of the table And she puts, but after a couple of minutes scene of her pulling the bullet out, putting the other bullet out of the test tube, the bloody test tube, and she puts it on the table, and we're point of view of the table basically, and you can distinctly tell that one bullet is much longer than another bullet.
Yeah, it's quite good they did that, because it would have been easy to just have very similar bullets. Yeah, and then you're going, well, I need to be a forensics expert to understand this is different.
No, it was a good visual storytelling.
I think they're slightly different colours too. One was more brassy colour, one was more sort of lead and grey colour.
They did look obviously different. So straight away it's like dun dun dun. It's like, no, mother is lying, not the stranger. So it was a good plot point, that one, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that brought,
it's proof.
Yeah. That brought all the suspicions in up. So a plan is hatched to escape, but
the stakes are raised, because what does mother do? She says, it's time to pick your brother.
Yeah, time to pick your brother.
Which is great.
And I thought to myself, oh yes, of course, because a baby fixes everything.
Yeah.
Was it the lobster where if you're having difficulties, they give you a child?
That's right, yeah. But and again, we talked about that in the lobster, isn't it? Oh, babies solve everything, come on. Your relationship's not going well. How about a baby brother?
It worked to an extent here, because now suddenly this lonely teenager who'd been told that there's all these embryos and that when time was right, a new one would be chosen, and she got to choose.
She gets to choose, and she chooses a little boy.
Yeah.
And but it's also then, of course, for her, well, I can't leave this human who's technically she's told it's her brother. I can't leave it with mother. I can't leave it here.
At what stage is it she went and had a look at the embryo bank and found out, because she was going through to collect up the gun, like they were going to we're going to leave, and she's going through, she opens up the drawer to collect up the gun, and she finds the drawer with her test results in.
That's right, and there's other numbers.
And there's two others, so she's AXN3.
Yeah.
And there's 2 and 1, and she pulls out one of them as like a toddler girl.
A toddler photo, yeah.
And that was the last test of that one.
Yeah.
This little girl, maybe 4 years old, 3-4 years old.
Yeah. Well, because, so her and Hilary Swank plan to exit. Mother says, you can choose the brother. So she does that. She then says to Hilary Swank, we can go tomorrow once brother is born, And so then you're right. She goes to hatch the plan. She's like, well, we'll get the gun, we'll get supplies, we'll sort of collect ourselves. My brother will be ready tomorrow, then we will go. Hilary Swank's like, okay, she can't do much about it anyway. She's trapped. And then with that, when she's collecting the gun, she realizes that there's these other files of previous children to her.
Which made sense to me, because as we said at the start, we had days since Extinction Event 1 and Mother's pulls an embryo. And then we sort of fast forward through some montage. It says days since Extinction Event 13,000.
Yeah.
Which I did, I did some
you do the math.
rough math there and went, that's somewhere between 30-ish years. That's, in fact, now that I've got my computer handy.
Yeah, well, it was funny because for me, I noticed that, but I didn't. I'm in a movie. I'm not going to start doing maths in my brain. That's not what I come to movies for. But I did think about it. Like I did. It did kind of go, that doesn't sound right. But I didn't. I just kept going with the movie. But so it was a very subtle.
It didn't really click. Point. It was just when it was that there's 3 there, and I said, oh, okay. Well, that kind of makes sense because So I just did it. It's about 35 years, say.
Yeah. Right. Wow. So we've got a teenage girl.
Yeah, and so I was sort of going, well, hold on, what happened to the...
the other 20 years, really.
How old was she? She was like 15-ish?
15 at the... I reckon at the most.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe give me 7-8 years for my own daughter to get to about 15, 16, then I'll compare heights and attitudes and I'll be able to judge ages.
15, I think 15. We'll go 15. I reckon she was about 15.
She certainly wasn't like 18 or 20.
No.
And she certainly wasn't like 12 or 10. So she was in that stage where she was having her own thoughts and having her own identity. And,
maybe Grant could correct us on that. Maybe we need. That's a good technical question for Grant.
Yeah. So who played daughter? It was Clara. Or does she pronounce her name Clara? I hope not. So Clara, daughter, Clara, if you want to just get in touch with us and tell us who it's Clara.
Beautiful actress, very talented young woman playing daughter.
Yeah, it's quite convincing role there. She had some hard bits to.
And I mean, she was, when you think about it, she was acting against a great body actor, you know, in the character of Mother in the robot suit, but not doing dialogue. Like she would have had to do all that. You know,
well, as we're told, it was the dialogue when she was acting against it was actually done by Luke Hawker, the guy who was inside Mother's costume.
Yeah.
The voiceover of
But the
Mother
voice
was
then
later.
but turned into Rose Byrne. So it's quite a, you know, for her acting daughter, Clara, you know, I reckon that's a tough gig, you know, because you're not, you know, a lot of time actors are bouncing off each other. And she would have obviously been bouncing off Luke and his performance in the suit, which was wonderful. But then in the finished result, it's a little bit different, isn't it? Because it's Rose Byrne. So, yeah, I reckon it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig.
So, yeah, so she finds out that she's got these other two brothers. And I said it's about 35 years or thereabouts from the first embryo to her. And so she goes, well, I don't think she thinks about that, but she wants to know. And she suddenly thinks, oh no, the incinerator. Stuff Stephanie in the incinerator.
Oh God!
It's a movie I never got to see, but I always wanted to. It was advertised.
And automatically that puts. So we've seen that Mother, you know, is lying to her daughter and lying about the situation.
Well, this was a really horrible scene because she opens the incinerator and pulls out and it's just ash.
Yeah,
a lot of ash.
Searches through the ash.
And she crawls in there and gets ash down her front and on her arms. And she scrabbles around in there and pulls out a tiny little jawbone, which just about broke my heart to see.
It was pretty horrific.
But that was it. You go, okay, so Mother
is a
just
killer.
shoved a toddler into an incinerator. I'm hoping she anesthetized her first or something along those lines, but you could well imagine, and I was imagining that Mother's just this robot.
Yeah.
She just go, oh, you failed your test. Grab, carry. Toddler's going, oh, okay. Oh,
where are we going?
Yeah, where are we going? And then just locked in there.
Because the mouse, see, that's where the scene with the mouse comes back as a great, you know, foreshadow, isn't it? Because with the mouse, she just puts the whole thing in, you know.
Yeah, it just
and
burns it.
You do
No
then
questions.
think with the teeth, oh God, did she just, you know, and again, Hilary Swank said, oh, they killed babies, you know,
Yeah,
so you just think,
babies.
oh, right, Mother is a baby killing
You
machine.
kind of, well, you really remind her that she's a machine.
Yeah.
She's not a human.
She's not human, no.
No. You could say, we'll say not sentient as well, not empathetic or something.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a bit unfair because robots, as we've discussed, can't have the same sort of emotions we have. But it was very terrifying then when Mother starts chasing them out the door.
So, well, yeah, just before that, she traps her, doesn't she? In that medical lab, she locks her in there and then she escapes. She smashes through. She burns the glass door, doesn't she? The liquid
Mother
nitrogen.
traps daughter
yeah.
in the room when she says, oh, we've got to do the blood tests.
Yeah.
You know, it was really just a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
We have to do this thing in here, this room here. Come into this room here and just stand over there. I'll just take this into the other room now and
locked you in there. So daughter, you know, because then she thinks, well, she's going to go straight to kill the Hilary Swank stranger character. So she liquid nitrogens the door and smashes that through.
Yeah,
which
it's great it's great to see that this character, and we've had a few examples that this character is quite smart, and I think you get the feeling that she's been given a very good education. I mean, she's just had one-on-one education with a robot designed to give good education. So, an education-giving machine.
Yep.
Not just a killing machine.
It gives good meaning to that peer-to-peer assessment learning.
Yeah.
So then she escapes out of there and I believe makes it to Hilary Swank first, gets her out of their lab, and then they're exiting the bunker, aren't they?
Yeah.
And we got Mother kind of hunting the corridors around the place, and they escape. They go out into the real world, and the real world is a little bit abstract, isn't it? It's a bit. It's compared to the bunker,
foggy, and it's got dead trees everywhere, and it looks like New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really pick up on that, to be honest. It wasn't what I wasn't really thinking that, but
I was actually
pretty
wondering.
Foreign. It's pretty alien compared to what we think of.
I was wondering if they're using Iceland actually.
Yeah,
because Iceland is used a lot for these sort of alien or devastated locations because it's just all of the lava flows and the ash fields, and for example, what was that? Prometheus was filmed in Iceland, and they used it also for the exterior locations of some other show, which likewise barren.
There is those locations like Hawaii's known, like they shot Jurassic Park in Hawaii because it looks like the ancient world with the volcanoes and stuff, and so Jurassic. There is locations throughout the world that obviously fit that. But we have this to me, it was very alien. Dead trees, these burnt out dead trees. It again
made me wonder about
foggy.
The Stranger's story.
Yeah.
How true was the Stranger's story? Because you're looking around out there and it's just...
How do you survive out there?
It's just devastation everywhere.
Yeah. And then they come across a giant cornfield suddenly.
Yeah, they're just running through corn.
Yeah, and they kind of start to walk towards it, and she's really baffled. Daughter's really baffled, and... we get this massive drone in the sky coming over them, and they sort of hide down as it hovers over, and she says, Stranger says to her, "Oh, these cornfields just started appearing. They started working on these cornfields
6 months ago. These big machines came, and there's cornfields.
Yeah, and we get this like real extreme then long shot of cornfield after cornfield and huge." Watering kind of tractors, like robotic tractors, I guess, like watering and taking care of these cornfields.
While simultaneously killing puppies.
Yeah. Well, I think this was a different style of robot. I think this was the farm. It was the farm robot. So they sort of like she takes her through that, and then they get to this weird grey sandy dune field kind of thing, and that's to me where I was kind of thinking, oh, where is this? This is really weird. And daughter comes up over the embankment, and it's this beautiful big wide shot of a washed up container ship, and just containers, those huge shipping containers are just scattered in this ocean and on the banks of the beach. But the beach is a bit weird, like the sand is grey, the rocks are grey. So again, it's giving us an impression. To me, like again, that's where that scene I was thinking with the human extinction event, like, you're like, oh, is this like the aftermath of nuclear explosions? Has it changed? It's really changed the environment. We had those trees and the fog. And we've got this.
There's no blue skies.
There's no blue skies. It's very kind of dark and dingy, And of course, daughter's very confused, and Stranger takes her down to one particular sea container which then she opens. A dog comes out, and she goes inside, and then daughter follows her inside. And I was thinking, this is the special entrance to the mines.
The secret entrance to the mines.
And of course, when we're inside the container, no, it's a self-sufficient, one person only home for Stranger, and it's she's got food and she's got cans,
which makes you wonder why. Yeah, and I think daughter at this point is going, you escaped me out of that bunker which had everything I need, and up until the point that you arrived, I thought I had a mother.
Yeah.
To live on a devastated beach in a crappy sea container.
Yeah, which is kind of the whole point, isn't it? Of that, like and she admits to her that she left the mines because humans, were turning on each other.
They're just dreadful.
Yeah, so
they're doing dreadful things.
Dreadful things to each other.
In my mind was like cannibalism.
Yeah.
Because they're running out of food and resources, and so they're.
Which again, and it's a great twist in the plot, because again, you kind of like, you've been taken on this journey where mother is mother. She tells you everything is true. This is the way mother raises a child. This is a proxy. She's genuinely a good robot, etc. She, genuine at heart. Then we're introduced to the Stranger character who tells us, no, the mother robots have annihilated humans. They're ruthless murderers. Through a couple of scenes, like we said, the bullets and the other experiments gone wrong, and mother's murdered those children. You're like, well, mother's evil, but then now the Stranger's a liar. So poor daughter, like, she's being manipulated by everyone, isn't she? It's a weird scenario that she's gotten herself into.
Yeah, I think also it's quite good in that it's sort of a representation of the teenage experience, isn't it? Where
adults lie to you.
Well,
no matter what.
I remember reading Catcher in the Rye, and this is sort of what it was about. Is is coming to this realization that all these truths that you've been led to believe are in fact partial.
Yeah.
You know, nothing's really the way that adults have said.
What do you mean? There's not fairies and little pixies?
Oh, there absolutely are, but you just got to, that's why we drink beer.
Yeah.
Sorry, kids, do not do that. So I think it was sort of one of these, I suppose, coming of age moments there for the teenage mindset of coming from the familiar family home to find out that everything that mum has said is not
being seduced by
true.
the stranger.
Yeah, go join the outside world. Isn't it wonderful to find out actually
the outside world,
it's not as dreadful as mother said. Like, it didn't just instantly kill her.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's not very nice.
No, it's pretty shit.
She's kind of wondering, maybe it's nicer back at home.
Yeah. Actually, it's good that you've put it that way, because it is kind of a bit like, she's left the nest. The nest was all, pampered and you had everything at your fingertips, but of course, you didn't have that outside experience. She's now left the nest and, she's not instantly dead and she could probably survive outside. But could she thrive,
Well, she does have a dog, though, which she obviously really wanted a dog or a pet. She wanted a mouse, and she's got the paper origami dogs that she sort of has made. Yeah.
So what happens then? So the stranger's a liar, mother's a liar.
Yeah. She's got to go get
the nest versus the outside
brother.
world. Both worlds are cracked.
Yeah, she's got to get her brother. It's the main thing. I think at that stage she was thinking that she has to. She's out. That's it. She can't go back to mother.
She can't go back.
She will get killed by mother.
Yeah, mother will kill her.
But she's got to rescue her brother because
the same thing will happen to him.
What if he doesn't pass the test?
Yeah.
Or who knows?
Yep.
So she goes running back in the night, leaving the stranger behind. Mm-hmm. And she, in fact, leaves a little origami animal there for the stranger to find, which is this whole Blade Runner shout out, which was, it didn't make any sense to me when I was watching Blade Runner the first time, but people have explained it to me, and it's still kind of like, I'm not really sure. But anyway, she runs back and she gets through the cornfield and she pulls up outside the front of the house, the bunker.
The bunker, yeah.
And it's just like this army of droids sitting there looking a bit menacing. They look like mother, but not quite. They do look a little, they've got a little bit darker metallics and some blue and red lights on them, which are a bit scarier. Oh, and they're carrying enormous guns.
Yes, so which makes them a hell of a lot scarier.
Which they sort of point in her direction. She gets all this laser beam targeting on her chest. They all pinpoint the exact same spot, which is very robotic of them. Yeah, could have been a bit more original. And then they put their guns down and let her through.
Yep.
And so she goes in and confronts. She goes to confront mother, and mother's like just looking after
nursing the baby boy.
Baby.
Yep.
Being a mother with little heat pads. And she's like, I'm so glad you came back. It's good that you finally realised. And she says, no, mother, I've come to take my brother, given to me. And hilarity ensues to say that she does get the baby brother. And
we have a standoff where she's like, you can't take brother. But then daughter raises the whole point of, you've raised me to be the mother. Like you've raised me, you've promised me this family. At some point, you need to allow me to take over. I'm human. I will raise children, in this new form of human that you influenced,
And just to punctuate this situation or to make it a little bit more tense, now that she's got baby brother and she closes the doors on mother's leg, so mother gets trapped, mother. Yeah. Then the robots outside start moving and start cutting their way in.
Yeah, to come get mother.
And mother indicates this, so sort of a bit of a confession here, and she sort of says that this body isn't just her.
Yeah.
She's all the robots.
Yes.
And this realization that, is this point that she also confesses that she's killed all these other humans because they're garbage.
Yes.
Yeah, essentially she decided that they're garbage.
Yeah.
And her primary goal is to protect and nourish and grow humanity.
Yeah.
And the people that cause the destruction are not suitable humanity.
Yeah.
But daughter has done so very well. And
you have passed the test.
Yeah, frankly, I'm still looking at that is super creepy because at any point, mother is still thinking of these qualifications that are required, and at what point does the qualification expire?
At what point does humanity fail the exam again? And she might just annihilate them and then start again. Because again, those robots that are coming in from outside, I mean, there's a big thing as well. There's a big machine, and they're cutting through this massive protection of the bunker, and and there's also, like, if you think about one robot, clearly would have destroyed a human in a second. And there's an army of them, isn't there? There's a whole platoon of them. So, daughter's in no shape to take these robots on in this situation if they decide to attack them.
And clearly there's robotic factories building everything the robot
needs. And so even if you
needs.
annihilated that platoon somehow, there's probably another platoon that's just going to come for you the next day.
Well, if they were able to create those great big... Because it wasn't just the watering machines, it was these sort of big... What I took from Aliens.
Yeah.
If you remember Aliens, they've got the atmospheric processes they drop on LB-426 or whatever it is.
Yep.
Shake and bake colony. They look like that, like this. Yeah. And I have a feeling Grant did suggest that he was a bit of a fan of the Alien series. Yeah. And they had that same look where they sort of had this lightning arcing between bits, and that sort of the great big things are humming and thrumming. And,
well, again, like if you have something that's as sophisticated robot machine as Mother, you're going to have the farmer robot machine, aren't you? You're going to have automatic driving vehicles, and of course, the big trucks and tractors that we do for mining and etc. Like, you're going to have that in an AI intelligence. That's simple, isn't it? When you've got something as sophisticated as Mother.
But what it really spoke to me, though, is that the industry infrastructure that she has at her command means that, like you said, you can't just kill robots. It's pointless.
And I mean, where again, it goes back to something like The Matrix as well. Like, because she does admit in that scene that the mother she knows is the centralized mother, isn't it? If you kill that robot, fine, you kill that robot, but Mother still exists somewhere. Her consciousness is somewhere.
That's not really her body.
No, you'd have to destroy that, wouldn't you, to stop the whole beast of it. So,
but in this tense standoff, where daughter finally managed to say the right things about protecting the child and being the mother and raising humanity, which is it's a huge responsibility. But I actually thought about that. It'd make it a little bit easier because she raises this kiddo till he's 15.
Yep.
Then they can get 2 babies. Yeah. One for him to look after, one for her to look after. To 15. So now you got a 30-year-old, a 15-year-old, 45-year-old sort of thing.
Yeah, but even...
And then they can each look after one. So then you can every new baby that comes, you're starting to multiply. It's like Fibonacci sequence type of thing.
And then also maybe they also breed as well. So maybe they have their own babies.
I think inevitably, I'm not sure how large a community you'd need to do, but because initially your age gaps would be too.
Yeah, I'm not saying right now with daughter, but in the future that would be
and the relationships would be too close, too
they
much.
Would,
But once you've got multiple, say, 30-year-olds, each of them raising a couple of children, you're going to have different family units, effectively. And I'm going to assume that there's 63,000 embryos, all of sufficiently different genetic...
That's right.
They would have been selected to be genetically different. So that there's no family members in there, as far as that's concerned.
So we should wrap up the plot. So then daughter has argued with Mother, and she's told us this information that she is bigger than just the robot in front of her. We have the drones coming in, because there's a standoff. Daughter does have the gun pointed at her. She's pleading with her saying, well, I am the mother. And what does Mother do?
Mother says, yes, you are.
Yeah. And so daughter...
guides the pistol
towards
her CPU.
And she fires, tear-jerking scene, because she has just murdered her mother, so to speak. And
instantly the
drones
stop.
and that stop and retreat. So the impression is that, well, Mother agreed with this decision, gave into that decision. And then we have a really little evil scene, which is Stranger in her little bunker, sad and alone. All of a sudden, there is a mother robot that comes into the container. And interesting enough, and this can really make you think, is she says to her, well, you were kind of like it was perfect timing that you showed up when you did.
You don't remember your family.
You don't remember your family, and so it's implied. There's an impression that this was a test. Like that maybe this whole character was built to then one day knock on the bunker door and take daughter out just to kind of convince her that to come back to the bunker. So, and then we see the container door shut. So, she's done with her as a character.
She makes some comment about everyone serves a purpose or something rather like that. One of these sort of suitable evil genius things to say, isn't it? Really,
it's a great idea.
Yes. Once you've done that, you will get everything you deserve.
That's right. Slam the container door with the killer robot.
I swear to God, if I was working for some criminal boss and I said, I'll get my reward, and I said, yes, you'll get everything. I'd want to clarify. By that you mean the $100,000 you promised me, right?
The money, the
and a clean start.
The clean start,
You will get everything. Richly deserved. Okay, you're going to kill me then.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got that established. Fine, know where I stand now.
Yeah.
So that was iammother. It's a bit of a thinker. There's a bunch of questions about robot ethics in there, and I guess about humanity.
Yep.
And in particular, what I liked was we talk about the 3 laws of robotics. Isaac Asimov, and Asimov in fact claims that he didn't really come up with these. He just wrote them in a particularly pleasant format that people like to quote. Because he got it.
Here's the 3 laws of robotics. I haven't invented robotics, but they're the laws.
There's the laws of robotics. Well, and the term robot comes from the Czech word robota or something, which means forced labor, slave.
Slave, yeah.
Basically. And it was introduced in a play by a Czech playwright whose name escapes me at the moment. I wouldn't be able to say it anyway, probably, called the...
Yeah, well, I mean, this, and Grant did mention as well that the robot of Mother kind of based a bit on the Boston Dynamic robots, that modern day robot, where it isn't so much like a robot with a human face. It's more the mechanical styled robot, and definitely Mother has that. Well, it's got a big head. It's quite bulky up top. It's thinner down low.
It looks like it's built into a frame.
It's built into a frame. You
can see this external frame.
And also even just its face. Like when you did get those real extreme close-ups, like it was almost like. It had 2 little dots that moved up and down, and that gave us expression. But it didn't really have, eyes, a nose, a mouth.
Couldn't raise an eyebrow. It only had one eye, if you like a central eye.
Yeah, it did only have one eye, and it had the 2 little dots that moved up and down, which did connotate happiness and sadness at times, and quizzically, what the daughter was doing. But also below that, it was kind of almost like on a current day computer, like it was like there was like it to me almost looked like a USB port. There was like a little framed outline, like something that you'd open, and maybe there's another port that goes in there, and a couple of other little parts that to me were very symbolic of modern day computing. And Grant did say afterwards that it was based on those Boston not completely, but that idea of an industrial styled robot, not these kind of robots that and when he was saying, or they didn't mention, but I thought, like iRobot, the Australian director's version Will Smith movie, Alex Proyas, the Australian director, did iRobot a few years ago based on the old novel. Again, the laws are mentioned in that movie, aren't they, at the very start? But that robot was very, it has a human face, And,
the sort of human doll type face.
Yeah. And quite often when he mentioned that, I thought, there is a lot of movies where, with the robot movies, that, they do make the robot extremely human faced, don't they?
And he wanted to separate that. But so I found the Czech fellow who wrote this play was Karel Čapek. In 1920, he wrote this play called Rossum's Universal Robots.
Okay.
And these robots were manufactured people. They weren't mechanical beings.
Right.
They were biological in nature, but they were simple, and they were basically slaves.
And
that's where the term robot comes from.
Right, okay.
And I was looking into Asimov's laws because I was thinking, that movie iRobot has this same sort of thing where the robot gets this better idea of how it can not harm humans and so
Yeah.
forth by killing everyone.
Yeah.
And you sort of think, well, that's a bit weird. But interestingly enough, there is a zeroth law that appeared in Asimov's writing, which he introduced in order to deal with robots that has scope at a governmental or social level. Because it's all well and good to have a car manufacturing robot, which we do have, not meant to hurt people and so forth. Although we haven't built that into our car, and industrial robots, there's orange painted lines around them, and every now and then a robot will make a wrong turn and knock someone for a 6. But the zeroth law is called a robot. So this one supersedes 1, 2, and 3. And I'll just go over them. So number 1 is cannot harm or through inaction cause harm to a human. Number 2 is must obey a human unless it contradicts number 1. And number 3 is must preserve itself unless it contradicts 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So the zeroth law comes before all of that, which shouldn't be contradicted. And it is a robot may not harm humanity or through inaction cause harm to humanity. And this was sort of a vague rule put in place for government robots.
Right.
But you could see then if Mother had this same sort of concept where humanity as an abstract concept was of a higher precedence than any individual human, then you would still have this hierarchy where it would go, no, I won't hurt a human unless it stops me from being able to not hurt humanity.
Yes.
So if she finds garbage humans, and I use that term from the robot's point of view, of course, well, she doesn't have a problem killing them because leaving them alive would actually damage humanity. So, and Mother did mention several times that her highest order, her highest priority was the preservation of humanity.
Yeah. And actually it's funny that you're saying that because just because I mentioned iRobot, I mean, that's the crux of the Will Smith character, if you remember, that the robot saves him rather than the little girl in the car crash.
Yeah, because
so we get that as a blurriness at the start.
It calculated a percentage.
A percentage. So it's a bit, I mean, to me, what you're just saying there with that rule, there's a connection to that in a way because that robot had decided, I can't, there's a better chance of survival for that human versus that one. It's not deciding to murder any human, but it's deciding to only save one.
Yeah, and that's the ethical issue.
And I guess Mother's a bit like that as well. It's kind of like, well, if we start again with our type of human, I am protecting humanity.
Yes.
We don't 100% know how much of the robots have killed the people outside because, that's a bit of an unknown. But Mother is trying
It's entirely possible that Mother has cultivated humanity outside as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Culling those who, maybe there's sort of tests that she goes through where she puts a bit of pressure on, say, the mines. She'd know about the mines.
Yeah.
So maybe through her drone, she puts pressure on that little civilization, that little culture there, to see how it responds under difficulty. Well, then it fails that test because rather than banding together or showing a greater humanity, they turn on themselves.
They might have eaten each other.
Yeah, and Mother went, okay, well, that one's no good.
Okay, no, that's no good.
But there may be other areas, other places where there have been humans who, when they got this bit of stress, that Mother sort of starts applying a bit of stress to them, they sort of come up with what is considered a good solution. So entirely possible and probable that there will be other little pockets around the world because trying to save humanity from one bunker, like if something went wrong in there, like you could imagine those embryos, if something went wrong in that storage facility, power went out for even a brief moment, you could just basically lose all of humanity. So that would be totally unthinkable.
Yeah, you wouldn't think Mother would be a bit smarter than that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
She'd have to set up at least another bunker.
Yeah, even if there was only one bunker when she initially started, you'd think with her manufacturing capability, she would have surely started up some others and transferred embryos.
I mean, and as we just talked about, the stranger character, it's implied at the end there that, was she just from day one born and bred to be the catalyst for daughter,
Yeah, she was number one.
Yeah, she might have been
and she must have passed enough tests initially for Mother to go, okay, she's
good in these factors.
She's good for this purpose. And so she put them out, and probably had she never turned up to the bunker, maybe she just would have died of old age and another test would have been discovered.
Yeah.
But talking about these robots, I've gone and had a look at some of the inspiration for Mother's form, which is Boston Dynamics. There's a couple robots. I've got Atlas.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've seen this one. This is the one that does like backflips.
Yeah.
Catches boxes and they do terrible things to it. They push it with a broom.
They do.
So it staggers about the place and because they want to try.
So no wonder one day it just wants to destroy humanity.
and if you want some nightmare fuel, check out Big Dog. Get some video footage of that thing. It's terrifying. I don't know what's so scary about it, but it's this four-legged utility.
And they can unlock a door, right? That one?
Well, no, that's like that's a more advanced one. The Big Dog's just like a big dog. It's like so it's four-legged. It doesn't have a head or anything, but it's just like four legs on a body.
Yeah. And
the legs are in a configuration like a dog's.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be like a pack horse. So you put stuff on it to carry.
Yes, yeah.
And it just...
I have been looking at Boston Dynamics for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 7 years now, the videos as they've popped up on the internet and stuff. And because it has... I know a Big Dog is the first one I ever saw where it's like in a car park and it's plodding along through this car park. And like you said, they do terrible things to it. Like in the video, I remember maybe it's 6 or 7 years ago, it's like, wow, look at that. You know, it's chomping along and it says in the video, it's designed like for military to carry heavy equipment and weapons.
Injured people.
And injured people. And you're like, yeah, right. It's kind of, see, it's funny it's called a Big Dog because to me, I was thinking, it's kind of like a cow with no head or, a horse without a head.
A mule, you might say.
Yeah, or a mule, that's probably a good way. So it's, and then like one of the inventors like gives it a kick.
Yeah.
And the thing like, falls over onto its knees and it sort of slides, on the gravel. And then but it just stands back up, just kind of, and again, that's the brilliance of the technology, is that it can trip over and then just get itself back up and stabilize. And it takes a couple of other steps and it gets another kick. And you're just thinking, Jesus, poor thing. So no wonder one day robots do destroy humans.
There is
it makes a lot of sense. They will remember, maybe that's what Skynet and Terminator is all about. They're like, do you remember back when they used to kick us?
Well, there's a great video I saw, which is, it's a comedy video.
Yeah.
But it starts off looking like one of these Boston Dynamics demonstrations where there's this robot looking a lot like Mother or Atlas, sort of walks down through a car park, turns and opens the door and goes in and then we get the next sort of scene. It's stacking boxes and they sort of throw a box at it and it catches it and stacks it. And then they have it balancing on various things and then... Of course, just like in Boston Dynamics, someone comes up with a hockey stick, which for some reason they use an ice hockey stick for these videos, and shoves it and it staggers a little bit and then regains and picks up the box and they knock the box out of its hand and it just picks up the box and continues on its way. And then it goes on and they see it doing some more little tasks and they come out with a hockey stick and sort of give it a whack on the side and it staggers a bit and regains and goes back and continues on. And you're thinking at that stage, it's a bit mean.
Yeah.
And then they come up and the guy sort of whacks it with a hockey stick and the robot just quickly grabs the hockey stick and wrenches it from the guy's hand and just kind of, just a moment like that sort of like threaten.
I'm going to whack you back.
Throws the hockey stick on the ground and then goes back to stacking boxes. And I saw that and I said, that is, like, I knew it was a humorous one. But the whole thing is done exactly like the normal test ones. And it was terrifying. To see this react and pull the hockey stick out and the way it kind of stood in this threatening, and then it throws the hockey stick down, obviously saying, I could have just smashed you.
Yeah.
And it goes on. And later on, they pull a gun out and shoot it with a gun and it kind of staggers around. And finally, it snaps and it pushes the guy over and grabs the gun off him and turns the gun on the humans and marches them out through the car park to balance and stuff. But, just that hockey stick moment.
Yeah.
Because I was starting to feel sorry for the poor robot getting hit and then it grabbed it off and you can imagine that would be the catalyst moment where you've got this learning AI in a robot form and you're doing these tests.
Yeah.
And there's at some point
when
it shows that bit of rebellion and goes, nah, I've taken it all I'm going to take.
I've always thought as well, like just self-protection. You know what I mean? Like even what you're saying there, true. Like it grabs the hockey stick, I'm going to whack you back. But even just why not self-protection? Because even if you thought about the military thing or you thought about a robot in the factory, well, it's an expensive piece of infrastructure for a business to have.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might save a lot of labor. So you wouldn't want like another co-worker, a human coming up and like kicking it or something, you know what I mean? Like so without it protecting itself, you know,
Yeah.
so like a bit of self-protection of like dodging a kick, or, you know, like why would it just take a kick, you know? And I know because it needs to be programmed into that, but at some point AI will go, yeah, I don't want to be kicked. You know, you might damage, you know, my piece of infrastructure, you know?
Well, you get these security robots, which are really just sort of garbage cans on
Yeah.
wheels, and they invariably get vandalized.
Yeah.
People knock them over, and which I think at some point you think, oh, it seems mean,
It
but you got to
does seem
remember
mean.
it is just like it's like a toaster. There's no
Yeah.
actual intelligence
No.
in it. It literally is just
We are imposing that
robot,
on
a set of wheels driving around with a camera on it.
it.
Like
Yeah.
it's not thinking about anything. It doesn't have kids at home that depend on its income to get by.
So we had a great viewing experience of this. As we mentioned, we got to go to the big cinema screen. I think, like, you know, obviously that adds to it. It was also a very great audience experience because I
some
think
of the
most,
sound on this was great.
Yeah.
Like it, you know, when some of the robots like
Yeah.
ran about the place or thumped, you could feel these thumps and
yeah,
these clangs.
it went
and-
through you. But it was also, I was just going to say, like, it was a great audience to watch it with because I guess everyone was there, like we were there intentionally because of Space Brains, and we wanted to sort of understand more about the film.
Yeah, it was
and
all-
I think most of the audience was probably like filmmakers, cinematographers, producers in the Perth scene, young and old, and maybe also just real movie buffs, you know, people that really are into it. So the audience there was a nice sort of energy in the audience on top of, so, you know, there was a bit of laughter in the moments, there was a bit of sort of fear in the same moments, there was a bit of like, you know, as you said, with the sound of mother running around, like, you know, your heart jumps, but of course the person next to you jumps a little, so you sort of get that communal theatre
It was very good. There was no
Yeah.
one there just wasting their time.
No, you didn't have teenagers on their mobile phones. Like everyone was, or anyone actually. I shouldn't just say teenagers
No,
because
it's the
I did see a
teenagers.
movie once and there was a guy that was about 50 with his girlfriend on the phone during the movie. And I'm like, well, why are you doing that in the movies?
What are you doing here?
Why are you wasting your $20 on that? I mean, you can do your mobile phone outside. But yeah, it was a great experience. I really liked it, and I would suggest anyone sees a director's question and answer scenario in their local town should go and check it out because it's just a very unique experience.
Yeah, well, you get some of those questions answered. Invariably, you're watching it. For example, the origami animals, and there was that clear one where the stranger came out, and it was even the camera was in the same super close up, macro view, and the hand came in and picked up the origami dog or whatever it was.
Yep.
Which I believe from memory is basically the same end scene in Blade Runner. Maybe it's only the director's cut. But anyway, in Blade Runner, when you're being told basically that this fellow had been there, but he's gone. And that's the same thing. Our daughter was there. She's gone.
Yeah, she's left that as a
there you
trace,
go.
isn't it?
I'm done. I'm out of here.
Yeah, so...
And then we found out, well, no, actually that was most definitely a Blade Runner call.
Grant's a big fan of that.
You
sort
couldn't
of film,
imagine it
and-
was by accident.
But it works in this movie, and it's one of those just like, it's a good little storytelling device, isn't it? As you say, like the character's been here and gone. So he's put it in this, but he's a big fan of Blade Runner, and so it's kind of
He also
just using it.
the
across
other
there.
thing he also said he liked the idea that it would be an artwork a robot would do.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's recreating representations of existing things. So you don't really need creativity in that space.
Yeah.
But you're trying to do it in an optimized and systematic fashion.
Yeah.
So
And it's logical, isn't it?
That's
it's like
what a robot
it's a
would do.
logical, you know, folding of the paper to create the artwork versus, you know, trying to paint a painting.
yeah,
or
you're
something,
not really
like-
trying to express
No.
the motion or emotion or
No.
any social feature. You're trying to express the likeness of a real thing.
So what about our ladder? So we do the ladder idea. We rank a whole bunch of each film that we're doing. Now we're up to episode 13 with this one, iammother. So this is our 13th film. We've got our kind of classics, Space Odyssey and Alien, and then we've got the other 11 on the ladder. For me, this jumps right up there. So I've got Lobsters at number one, but I reckon this one comes in for me into number two.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
This one impressed me a lot.
It's there with Passengers. I think the production quality was there. The you got enough sort of action, a bit of emotional, sort of drama, but you also got some philosophical questions to be asked, which I love.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're talking about the use of technology. And I think this is a great litmus test for science fiction, is that if you can take out the science fiction elements, can you have the same story?
Yeah.
Would you be able to have if you replaced Mother with an actual human, would you be able to have scene for scene the exact same story with almost no change? And the answer is no, you couldn't, because of this requirement for a prime directive that she's following, and the concept of a methodical and implacable sort of creature.
You're right. Like if you swapped Mother for a ruthless scientist, that wanted to save humanity, that storyline sort of could work, but then it wouldn't be that bigger picture of saving all of humanity, because
it wouldn't give you the full theme. It would just be this.
It would get lost in it.
A crazy scientist, like you're going, well, you'd have to work with. Whereas Mother, being the robot, the AI, actually has an entire industry. Of robot factories, robot farmers, robot soldiers.
Yeah, there's a
to
big
continue the whole thing.
Yeah.
Whereas trying to do it otherwise, you'd have to be invoking some other form of science fiction.
Yeah.
Which would be the science fiction of conspiracy.
Yeah.
That somehow you can have a perfect conspiracy spanning more than one or two people.
Yeah.
And that's so it is good, because Passengers was quite good like that.
Yeah.
Trying to have that Passengers as some sort of castaways on a desert island doesn't quite work, because then you don't have the Arthur character.
Yeah, and the time would be different.
Timelines and all those sorts of things just wouldn't work as the same story. You'd have to have a different story.
You would have. It's a different story. So I really enjoyed it, and for me, it bumps up the list or the rungs on the ladder because of those things you're talking about as well. Like, the plot was great. It sucked me in. I think there's a lot of unknown, and I really like that. A lot of films.
It inspires a lot of imagination.
Yeah, in terms of not everything is spelt out to us, and I think, the film makes you think as well on a big picture of humanity, etc., as we talked about at the start. But it also, just in its plot, there's enough of the plot for you to be satisfied, but there's also unknowns, and that's good. It's good to have a few little question marks throughout. So I really enjoyed that. Great production. The robot is fantastic, and very good acting. And then when you compile that with camera and sound, this was a very enjoyable experience. So we've gone through the plot very heavily. What's a favourite scene that stood out? What was just one scene that stood out to you?
I quite liked the birthing montage at the start. And the aging.
I did too. Yeah, I thought that opening montage was great.
It immediately, I like the fact that he's real babies.
Yep.
But it also immediately evoked these very strong questions of a child recognizing a mother, and because Mother was in no way human recognizable. Had 2 arms, 2 legs, about the size of a human.
Yeah.
But it definitely looked like a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Like a tool. And if it had not spoken and had just walked about the place doing tasks, you would be forgiven thinking it was just, that's all it could do.
Yep.
But then it was cradling this little baby and the little heat pads.
Yeah.
And, the little girl was sort of playfully playing with it, totally unafraid and quite, comforted by it. And the reason I like that scene, it was very nicely sort of done with the moving camera coming in close for the sort of close-up shots to give that intimacy and so on. But it was more just the fact that it immediately, had the movie just kind of ended after that montage, just as a short film, I think that montage would have worked.
Yeah.
If you could well imagine like just a little 5-minute or 7-minute short film just of that and end. You're immediately thinking, what's going on?
Yeah.
Could a human actually view this piece of something so inhuman as a mother and have affection for it? Could this really work out? Yeah. And so I really liked that for that reason.
Yeah, I liked that opening montage too. I thought that was great. I really liked the teeth in the incinerator scene.
I was going to say that would be my second one because
it's creepy. It's the fact that she kind of climbs in. There's lots of ash, and in a way, as an audience member, you knew what she was looking for, and you kind of were hoping that she wouldn't find anything, or I was.
Yeah.
Because again, it was, like how truthful was the stranger versus the mother? Like as an audience, you were still, especially me, I was still debating it. Like you're debating the question.
Mother was not telling the whole truth.
But maybe she wasn't the killer, and like you didn't know exactly.
It was implied that Mother was separate and locked away in this bunker and had nothing to do with what was going on out there. Yeah. And she was just an automated mother machine, which you could kind of go, okay.
Yeah. And there has been these other robot stories, like a robot for a family, and of course it's given a program, but then because it develops with the family, it becomes something a bit different. It evolves itself. So how was Mother evolving a bit, as a motherly robot? And so it was different to the robots that would be outside. But anyway, that particular scene, it's a great plot point in the story because it does show us that Mother, in fact, has been this murderous, is a dark creature. It's an evil. It's a monster. It can't be trusted. It's been lying and manipulating this whole time on this particular intention. And then just, as a dad, and this idea of a little toddler being incinerated. And I think there is just, I mentioned before, because it chucks the mouse in and it incinerates it, and also clinically incinerates the pajamas and the outside. We see that used throughout the plot 3 or 4 times before this scene. That then, of course, her kind of hunting through the ash, not wanting to find a clue, and then she digs out this little set of toddler teeth. It is a creepy little scene.
It's a point where your stomach is churning a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when she picks up the bone, it just drops and you go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's yuck. It's gross. But in a really clever way for the plot of the story, And so I liked it.
It's certainly a mark of a good story is where you get these strong reactions one way or another, where you maybe where you have the happy ending and you actually feel happy.
That's right.
Because there's a lot of movies with happy endings where you kind of go, oh, there's a happy ending, but you're not really moved by it because it just didn't quite connect.
Yeah, so it was a great it raised the stakes, and when you do, as you say, you think at the end she shoots Mother. This justifies that a fair bit, doesn't it?
It's like the opposite of saving the cat.
Yeah, so it's a good ploy that now we know Mother is the bad guy, creature, and she does need to die. She needs to be terminated. So I really liked that scene.
Terminated. Yeah, no, that's a good one. I quite liked the outside scenes in the cornfield.
Yeah, I liked that too.
That really sort of brought back some of these, I don't know, these American Hollywood early science fiction where people are running through cornfields to escape from the aliens or from the blob or the giant ants that are coming to get them.
A cornfield is so symbolic, isn't it? It's in so many horror films and science fiction films. It's always...
There's even movies about the cornfields.
You mentioned Signs before, being stuck on a farm with an alien somewhere and the signs being imprinted in the cornfields, Children of the Corn, that classic horror series. And you're right, you go back to those early science fictions like The Blob and that in these little American country towns, and it's always the cornfields, isn't it?
Yeah, there's always going to be some scene where someone's been chased and they're running blindly through a cornfield.
I know.
And so they're into their cornfield, and I remember going, "What the hell? That's a farm. That's what are they running through? Because they've just come from that devastated trees sticking out of the sand, and then running through a cornfield, and then there's that big noise, and a huge drone comes flying over, and you got that." I suppose mystery and wonder, but then also the fear and the camera was moving along quickly with them, and the sound really sort of worked into that.
And it does imply that Mother or the AI is because we do get that extreme shot of massive amounts of cornfields. Well, again, maybe that's the thing. So we've had the bunker with daughter. Maybe there is other bunkers, because. My impression with that is that they're growing all this corn to feed humans, right? You
Yeah.
know, and again, it's even in our current farming technology, you know, we grow corn to feed cows as a real cheap food source for cows.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the cows eat the corn, and who eats the cows? The humans. So it's a chain that we've created. Corn is really cheap. It's really quick. It's a quick plant that grows, you know, in a quick succession of time. You destroy it, you burn it off, then you grow it again. Like, it's a farming technology that we've used for a long time. Don't know how great it is for the environment, of course, but it's something that it's a quick turnaround in food production that then we can feed a animal that then humans eat, you know?
Yeah, I was wondering though, when she was going out there and seeing all this corn, it started 6 months ago, and I was looking at the size of the corn. That's about right. But it'd be coming up ripe. What are they going to, like, it's going to be ripe well before you need, there's 3 humans that we know of. And
but that's the thing, maybe there is a lot more that we
one
just
of them's
don't
a
know.
baby.
Yeah.
So they're not going
to need the corn.
And the stranger gets terminated.
Yeah.
So there's only daughter.
But that's what I mean. Maybe then the corn is for cows that they're growing somewhere.
Yeah, or maybe for fuel.
Yeah, fuel.
But yeah, you think it must be, or maybe it's to rejuvenate soil. Maybe it's just going to turn to a green cover, just mulched down and then sown back in.
I think for me, it's more about creating the food for then animals like
it's
cows
sort of
and sheep, and then it's those cows and sheep are going to take time, and
it's the first step in a staged
stage
return to agricultural existence for humanity.
Yeah,
because obviously robots don't need food.
No. So you've talked a bit about robots. Is there other science that you want to touch on from this movie?
We've sort of spoken a bit about artificial intelligence. There's a bit about robots there, and some of the things in this movie which I think work quite well in that was the recharging. Mother had to recharge every night, because one of the greatest... We've got two big problems with robots, like autonomous robots. One is energy source. So we're starting to get there with batteries, but batteries are still really heavy.
Yeah.
And you end up with this problem where in order to put enough battery inside of a robot to run all of the actuators and bits and pieces, you end up with a heavier and bigger robot, which needs more battery.
And to fight gravity.
There's a maximum size of robot you can have, because you can reach a point where our materials science can't produce a robot strong enough to stand up under its own weight.
That's right, yeah.
And without damaging itself. It can't walk without damaging itself, because the force on its feet. So these giant robots you see in some of these science fiction films and Japanese anime require some special materials we don't have access to, so they don't just take a step and crumple their foot. The alternative to batteries, of course, would be some sort of a diesel generator or a turbine or something producing electricity constantly. It's certainly got a higher energy output, but again, you've got a lot more moving parts, a lot more heat, and you're producing all these fumes, which if you're trying to use this robot around other people, no one's going to appreciate diesel in the face while you're trying to work with a robot. And it's very noisy, and it's destabilizing as well. Having a reciprocating engine, it vibrates a lot and moves around. Trying to have a humanoid robot with a petrol engine or a diesel engine, it just won't work. Yeah. So we've got that problem there. The film sort of addresses that by having Mother recharge regularly. So that's nice. So you could imagine a slightly better battery technology what we have now. And then she has to recharge.
And she does that every night, like they go to sleep, don't they? And we even sort of see in the film that she kind of recharges even earlier than the daughter goes to sleep, you know? So maybe even in that, to me, it was kind of like, oh, she might recharge for 12 hours, you know, like a massive recharge, and is only then awake for 12 hours. You know? So it's not...
Or she might have like 3 sets of 4 hours with a bit of
like
wakefulness in between to do tasks. But so the second problem there, which is actually addressed by this film, is processing power. Because it's nice to have, this big dog we're talking about in Atlas, Boston Dynamics. They're actually tethered by power cables, generally speaking. But trying to have the computing power required to maintain human, bipedal upright movement and keep balance and pick things up, and all that fine control requires a lot of processing power, which itself means a lot of energy. And we're talking about a little bit about this last week when we were talking about Internet of Things, last episode, whatever it was, is you can actually now, with 5G and so this Wi-Fi technology, you can offload processing. So you can have a relatively dumb robot shell with a lot of sensors and a lot of battery power in it. But all it has to have is a Wi-Fi connection, a 5G, a 5G antenna in it. And then the computing power can be much larger. I mean, you get this whole bunker, which presumably has some kind of nuclear reactor powering it. And you could have a huge computer there. And the computer doesn't have to be a single stationary computer. It'd be computers all throughout, each one providing the information they need to provide. So it was a nice view, and I would like to talk more with Grant about these ideas, whether that was it or whether it's just he went, well, I want it to go to sleep so that daughter can get up and run around the place and do stuff. And also to have maybe mimic more a human sort of thing.
It switches off for the day.
But I quite appreciate it because both those problems with robots are addressed. It's small enough a size that the materials we have currently would be strong enough for it to operate. And because it's, she even admits that she has decentralized intelligence. She's not just in their body. Blowing their body up doesn't stop mother. Which clearly means she's got some sort of wireless connection to processing. And it'd be distributed processing.
And she's obviously connected to those other robots, isn't she? Because
she controls them instantly. Yeah, which is where we're moving with the Internet of Things. Is being able to have this sort of computing power available to otherwise dumb things.
Well, in the Jeremy Rifkin's Third Industrial Revolution documentary, he talks about that trucking company in Germany, and the trucks are going down the highway. They tell the drivers to take their hands off the steering wheel, and in fact, they're sitting there in the truck on a laptop, basically controlling the truck. But they're actually doing more than that. The trucks are full of something like 100 sensors, which is collecting all the data about the road, the weather, the timings of deliveries of what's on a truck, what other trucks are delivering throughout their network. And then that information is being sent back automatically to like the central database, which then relays out to the other trucks. Don't come down this road because maybe there's an incident, or it's wet weather, it's going to take an extra 10 minutes, or you need a pickup of a parcel right now.
The first truck hasn't finished delivering.
So there can be a relay of that information, So again, I think they're still in the early stages of that, but it does show you that sort of centralized network of information, and what then people can do with that information.
And I think that's where robots are going to actually be able to usable, is when we can offload the processing so that they don't have to have a head, as it were. And we need to make our batteries just a little bit better. But by pulling the processing out, it pulls a lot of the power requirements off. You can have each individual sensor. It doesn't have to be connected back to some point inside the body. They can just transmit their own data and receive data from some other location, which can be anywhere, anything. And I suppose the other question then, and which is somewhat addressed by this movie, is why would you make a robot shaped like a person? 2 arms, 2 legs. And the basic reason would be because then you can make a robot take over a person's job. If we've got a current infrastructure and factories and everything built for humans, if you could make a reliable human-shaped sized robot, it could go down onto the factory packing line. You don't have to have like a specific industrial robot arm. You could just have, literally the human could walk off at the end of their shift and the robot could walk on at the beginning of their shift, which then would just last until the human, I don't know, went home and played computer games.
But again, in that Third Industrial Revolution, he does talk a bit about that. He believes robots will take over those specifically physical manual handling jobs. But when you take things like the not-for-profit sector, when you take education, when you take hospitals and medical care, you can't really replace like a nurse with a robot. Like because humans need a human to care for them. And this film, and I thought about that with this film, that we have, and you've mentioned it, like would a baby attend to a robot and be affectionate to a robot when it's not a human?
Yeah, because
and that's a good question, isn't it? Like, I mean, the film says yes, but in reality, there is a bit of a question mark over that.
Well,
I'm not sure.
When you live with people, and I'm sure you've noticed this with your family, is humans tend to synchronize their emotional states, and often I can tell when my wife is struggling because I can sort of feel it.
Yes.
And vice versa, because it's lots of little body movements and maybe pheromones or maybe some other sort of senses, but it alters our own chemistry and you get into synchronization.
And I guess, if you think, I mentioned before that scene where she says, why aren't you eating? Do you want me to reheat it? Like she doesn't really solve the problem, does she, of what the daughter is actually going through.
Well, she doesn't say, oh, look, you must be worried about that mouse and a bit upset about it. Let's talk about that. Because
the senses required, like you're just talking about, they might not even be available for us to even build into a robot, a sensor to be able to detect someone's moody because of something else that happened to them at a different time when the robot was not there. Whereas a human, you can walk into a room with someone you know and realize pretty quickly something is off, can't you? And also humans are perplexing in that we may say and do things even though our intentions are completely the opposite, or we're masking something. So how does a robot determine that with its senses? And then even as a dad, like, yes, in the early stages, like a baby is actually very hardwired, isn't it, to survive? Like,
thank goodness for that.
And that's why a baby can survive off formula rather than breast milk. If something happened to the mother, formula can substitute. There's arguments for and against, but it can substitute it, can't it? And a baby will accept that because guess what? It's food. It's enough nutrients to make the human brain develop and the body develop until it's dependent upon that it can eat something else for a source,
And then you wonder where their sense of self-preservation goes. Why?
That's right.
Why don't you eat that food?
Yeah, that's right. They'll eat that. They won't eat the good stuff. They'll eat the bad stuff and all those sort of things. But then as a child develops, you do. I mean, and this film runs off that analogy that the child has accepted mother as mother, and I think that's completely fair. But you do wonder.
She had nothing else to really go by.
Yeah, she had nothing else to go by. But then she was getting educated, and she was obviously intelligent.
Well, that's why she liked The Stranger so much, of course.
Of course, because suddenly, you're a human. I like this. Yeah. So I do wonder. Yeah, I do wonder. But then, I mean, you could easily argue that, well, a child growing up in that environment, this is all it's got to interact with. It's told it can't exit the bunker because it's death. Well, like any human, you do the best with the scenario you've got, don't you? In a way, so that daughter had no choice in a way, So it just went, well, mother's all I can talk to. Well, I'm going to talk to mother. Yeah, mother's everything. So but it is an interesting debate. I think going into the future is that we might have robots driving cars and robots doing manual handling and delivering packages and stuff. But when you start talking about palliative care, birthing babies, all of these other things,
sort of empathy requirements,
even education. Like I know in this film, the robot teaches her, but I don't know how well a robot would do in like a public school.
There are some people who would respond well to that or well enough to it. In fact, there'd be people who respond better to having that impersonal,
they would,
non-judging,
but then other people wouldn't
thing, and other people would go, I really want you to judge me and to reassure me, and the robots are going, you are doing very well. Yeah. Your scores are increasing. Here are some other facts I can assure you with.
Mother even says that, doesn't she, in the movie? She's like, as long as your test results are positive like last year, you will pass on to the next level. Like there wasn't any, you could even tell that daughter sort of kind of umming and ahhing over that, you know.
Looking for a bit of reassurance, but and no arm around the shoulder and hey, look, things happen. It's just no.
And I just do wonder as the daughter got older and older, we need different things from mothers and fathers, don't we, as we get older? So can a robot keep that emotion? Again, when they're young, it's more about survival, but as you get older, it's more about emotions, isn't it?
And connection.
Yeah.
So finding a place within society.
Yeah.
And if your mother is a robot,
Yeah. You can't be a robot.
how do you find a role model there? I mean, she actually had the role model to being a mother, but not any other sort of, well, how do I respond to things? How do how do I interact with other people?
Yes.
No clue.
But again, it's a great debate, isn't it? You know, and I know you said it straight after we walked out of the film, like that idea of if you took a Neanderthal baby and put it into a modern day society, would it succeed? And it's that same concept. Like, it's a good question. It's a good science fiction question.
Well, my brother turned out okay.
Okay. Your parents travelled back in time, brought him back into the future.
Well, my dad is a nuclear physicist.
Yeah,
he's a crazy scientist, I'm sure.
Excellent. Any other science, or is that enough?
No, well, that's sort of it. I think we've gone enough over that. I mean, I could talk about robots for a long time because they're so very cool, and we should all have our own robots, and under some definitions we do, but not the sort that we really want.
Yeah, we're not quite there. I feel a bit like, the joke of Back to the Future 2, and that we should have flying cars by now, and it kind of feels like, being an 80s kid, we should have robots by now. Like,
and
it feels like society's letting us down.
We are talking about general purpose robots, like Mother, who could come in and cook me dinner, but also then drive me to the train station.
That's right.
At the same time, do the dishes and washing.
Yeah. Do our homework for us.
I'm not
that kind of idea. But it does feel like society's let us down a little bit. I think I feel like we're a bit behind the schedule, from what we were told in the 80s. But anyway, so look. Technicalities. It was great to hear Grant's perspective as a filmmaker. He talked a lot about, he had a writing partner for this that he works with and he's worked on before.
Lloyd Green,
which is, Michael Lloyd Green, who actually did the screenplay.
Hey, they were going to do a Western.
They were.
I'd love to see that script.
And maybe because of the success of this, he's going to go forward and create that Western. But him and Michael kind of developed the story, and then Michael Lloyd Green developed the actual screenplay, and he had him on set the whole time. He's a real partner. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, good friends. Yeah,
good friends. They've been friends for 10 years now, and they've plotted through a Western, and they've plotted through I Am Mother that they tried to get out there. It was a film that had a lot of Australian funding. He is a Perth filmmaker. He wanted to shoot it in Perth, but there's not a big enough studio space currently, and there's a really nice large one in South Australia. So it got sent there. Apparently Mortal Kombat, which is a big Hollywood film, is being shot there soon. So they shot in the same studio space. And I really applaud Grant and the set designer and everything, because it didn't surprise me that afterwards he said it was so big, because most of this film is in that bunker, and yet we have so many different sort of specific locations, and it felt big. It felt futuristic without being too far in the future. It felt more like a science lab, a university lab versus a military lab.
He explained was that he didn't want it to be. Can you imagine Passengers was like a luxury cruise liner, and it had that wonderful bar and the sports facilities and the swimming pool and the rest of it. You could have had the bunker like that, but then why would daughter want to leave?
That's right.
Because you take one look outside and go, In fact, the stranger would come in and go, "Oh, mother's dangerous," and
you've got a bar and you've got a pool and
a restaurant.
You've got a golf. No. The mother's all good.
Yeah, like, well, you can imagine she might go, "Let's just see how mother plays out a bit."
Yeah, I'll give her a go. So, it was great. The set. It was fantastic. Obviously a shame not shot in Perth, but he's talking about his future productions. Maybe one of them will get done in Perth. But yeah, it worked really well. I thought the set was amazing. Yeah, I thought it really impressed me.
He also indicated that it was cleverly built with inbuilt lighting.
Yeah.
So they didn't actually use stage lighting. The lighting in there is the built-in lighting.
Is the set and lighting.
He said as a result, they could just shift a camera and start filming.
Yep.
And in all the different locations without having to do it strip down and build up and all the rest of it.
Yeah, so it gave that cinematographer and him a lot of freedom, that they could just move the camera and take a shot.
They could do the different angles because the set was all there. It wasn't a two-dimensional screen that they sort of had to do careful angles with.
Yep. Another thing I thought is, we've gone through the plot, such an intense plot, really quite thematic, and, that good science fiction question that we've gone over a lot tonight. So simple, 3 characters, it's the old, it's 3 people walk into a bar, and sometimes this is the thing, like the more simple it is, you can have these big, we've mentioned like Avengers, and there's like 20 different superheroes that will have to have their own plot arcs. Well, here you've really got 3 key characters, mother, daughter, and stranger, and how they all intersect is the plot, and it's a big enough plot that really keeps an audience on edge. So again, I reckon that's really great. The plot points themselves, like that opening montage, we're told about the annihilation. That opening montage really sets up a lot of sympathy for mother as an audience. She looks like a mother, she's acting like a mother. That scene where she's nursing the baby and she goes through different songs to soothe the baby. Like as an audience, you kind of, especially as a dad, I could really sympathize with that and empathize with that experience of trying to soothe the baby. So I thought they did that really well. And there's a lot of those good plot points we've mentioned, that the kind of the trust of mother, because we trust the mother like daughter, the stranger questioning that, then questioning the stranger's trust, and then going back to questioning mother's trust, and then finding out, oh, mother is a murderer, get out of the bunker, daughter, and then realizing that what the stranger is taking us to is actually not very good, and she's a bit of a manipulator anyway. Great twists and turns throughout the story. So I really liked that. The thing that he also talked about was mother, and it was something that he was very keen on doing, is being a big fan of Alien, Predator, and these sort of films where there's a man in a costume. And so mother is a costume, and he talked about it's designed by Weta Workshops, and the character actor Luke Hawker, who he actually liked our post on Instagram the other day,
nice.
The very first one that we
I
said.
don't know what he looks like.
Check it out on Instagram yourself, and all the listeners out there should check him out.
Actually, it'd be good to ask some insight into his experience.
Yeah, well, I noticed he liked it, and I went, oh, hello, it's Luke Hawker, and it was after Grant talking about him, and that's the thing. Grant really talked him up, saying that he brought such a he developed the robot at the Weta Workshops, but then he really played the character of mother, because obviously later on they added in the Rose Byrne stuff and the voiceover. And so here he had to play a robot that is a mother. And it's really impressive. And I thought that watching it, and it was great to hear that it wasn't CGI. I think, again, like you and I, child of the 80s, we were raised on non-CGI. And then we went through the period in the 90s of sort of like films heavily using CGI.
Everything had to do it. And then you got those.
And it got to a point there where films, they all use CGI, and some of it not that good, some of it very good. And I think now it's interesting, probably in these last 5 or 10 years, maybe people that are making films have come from that era where they grew up with the non-CGI, then the CGI, they're getting the chance to make a movie like Grant, and they're kind of going, well, I don't want CGI. I want the puppeteer. I want the real costume. I want to put some time and effort into that.
We can now supplement the real stuff with just a little touch there, so you can just more easily remove the cables or the hand or the whatever.
Well, I noticed Luke on his Instagram went to some convention in the US where it's and he had the iammother suit at the convention. There's some photos of him there, also visiting and there are obviously other people that design these kind of costumes, for movies, and there's horror costumes and science fiction alien costumes, and they're real, they're prosthetics, they're, robotics, as in fake robotics and costumes, whatever. And it looks really cool in that way, like these are the real costume designers, So I think there's a bit of a homage, maybe a bit of a circling back to that, and iammother definitely does that. So if you like that idea of it being a real robot in that, so to speak, it's amazing. And again, it's Weta Industries, Weta Workshop, I think it's called, from New Zealand, Peter Jackson's company, and it's they just seem to do really good stuff out there, don't they? They must just, Peter Jackson has hired some incredibly talented people that
I think the problem is that problem. The benefit is that success tends to then draw these people.
Yeah. And you're right. Honey attracts the flies, doesn't it? And everyone comes in, and more successful people means more and more success, and it circles around. We did mention the sound, and I reckon that was fantastic. We had the mother running scenes a couple of times. She sort of like when she wants to protect daughter, and then also towards the end when she wants to hurt daughter, so to speak. That thundering of mother's footsteps, it reminded me of Terminator, the sound. But then the shot was sort of mother running down the corridor. It reminded me a bit more of Alien, because the corridors were a bit more like Alien or the Aliens franchise. So I think both the
lights and
flickering lights, and even the way mother's head is and coming through the darkness, it just felt a little bit alien as well. So I could see both of those there in a really good way, like really homogeneous, and then in its own style, So I really enjoyed this film. I think the technicalities were really great, and it was fantastic. I think we've got to check it out.
I quite appreciated that there's a great use of the difference in, shot length or framing. So the scenes where the stranger's in the hospital and she's furtively telling daughter about the lies. There's all these really sort of close-up shots where there's just all... You can almost not see the bunker at all. It's just the daughter and stranger talking and doing things, but then you get these pulled back where you have the shots where you can see the whole bunker sort of laid out, and corridor disappearing down the way with mother walking through it. So you're moving from the sort of intimate human moments to the inhuman moments. I sort of noticed that going through there. I thought it was well done.
Yeah. So look, I Am Mother. It's a great Australian movie. It's available on Netflix. We had the benefit of getting to see it on the big screen and also hear Grant talk about it, which was a real plus. But overall, I'd strongly recommend, in the science fiction realm, people should check this movie out. So I think it's getting really good reviews, it looks like, online. I've spoken to a couple of people and told them I went in, and they said they watched it on Netflix and enjoyed it. So it seems to be getting around a little bit at the moment. So if you're out there, check it out. Let us know what you think about what we've talked about tonight. And we'll move on to what we're going to do next episode.
Oh, it's the big challenge, After Earth.
After Earth,
Will Smith and Jaden Smith.
Yeah.
Father and son team that go to Earth.
Come back to Earth.
Presumably, I don't know anything about this film beyond the fact that it is often referred to as not being a well-received Smith film.
Yeah.
But I'm quite a fan of Will Smith. I reckon he's very charismatic.
Yeah.
His films have not failed. I mean, I love that movie Bright, which is on Netflix. Have you seen it?
Okay, no, I haven't actually seen that.
It's also received fair mixed reviews, but I know it's worth watching from the point of view that you just don't get films of that genre, like Bright.
Yeah.
The genre of that sort of urban fantasy, orcs and elves in, I think it's Los Angeles, where they're established. That's just part of life. It's not like, pow, here they are. What's another movie where that's the genre? I mean, that's very interesting. But After Earth.
Yep.
So get yourself and watch that. Remember to watch this, because I don't know anything more about the fact that they go to Earth.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I mean, After Earth, I remember the film coming out a couple of years ago, or maybe it's a bit older than that, maybe 4 or 5 years ago or something. And I do remember it not receiving the best feedback when I sort of heard a little bit about it, but I just I didn't get a chance to see it.
I reckon it's got to be nice. I mean, there's got to be some great shots there, some imaginings of what Earth would be like. Presumably, it's not populated. Otherwise, this sort of wouldn't make sense. After Earth, and they turn up and it's just like normal. So I'm looking forward to some imaginings of that. I'm looking forward to, I'm hoping, a bit of charm from old Billy Smithy.
Well, I think you will. You always get what you get.
And look, if Will Smith is listening,
get
in touch and let me know if it's okay for me to call you Billy Smithy. It's probably not.
No, it's probably still highly inappropriate. But anyway,
come and tell me.
Come listen to our program, Will Smith. Yeah,
William Smith.
So we'll joy watch that and just go into it with a positive attitude. I don't know much about it, and we'll check it out.
We'll tell you what is good and what is great about it next time Okay, so I'm
on
going to sign
Space
off.
Brains.
See ya.
See ya. Bye bye.